What if the life that you're experiencing right now, your body, your relationships, your challenges, were all selected from some sort of a cosmic menu to help you plan the life before you came into form? Now, I don't mean that in a everything happens for a reason spiritual sort of way. I mean, there was an actual process that you went through to plan out your life, and you had things you got to select from when you did that. So I have spent 30 years or more studying reincarnation and near-death experiences and all sorts of spirituality and world religions. And nothing has shifted my life experience more than thinking about how I selected my life before I came into form. So the first thing on your life menu is what lesson you are going to get up to in this next life. This is the most important thing that drives everything else, because this is your primary objective for the life. Now, how do you select this life lesson? Well, first, before you even get to the selection part, you've gone through a whole process where you've reviewed previous lives, particularly the one that you just had, and looked at what it was that you learned and what it was you didn't learn. I like to think of this as your life theme. We often talk about lessons, sure, because it's a lesson, that's often what's talked about. But if we think about it in terms of a theme, it kind of lights things up a little bit differently. So when you think about your life theme being compassion or power or self-love, it then allows you to have a filter to understand why you made the other choices you did. So this idea that you have a theme, I also call this a quest. I've got this Reincarnation as a game series, and there's one episode that I did that's your life is a quest, or you have a main quest. I'll link that down below so that you can learn more about how you chose the life theme, lesson, quest that you did and what all of that means. But when you know what that theme is, it then gives you clues or understanding as to why you chose the relationships you did, the body you did, the challenges you did, the purpose, etc., etc. It sets the stage, it sets the tone for everything else that follows. Which takes us to the next menu item, which is what I like to call the setup. Before you come into form, you've got to pick where you're going to land. And I don't mean that just in terms of the country that you're going to live in or the culture, but also the time, also the family, also your body, all of the things you're starting out your life with, because these things set up and to put into place and trigger everything that is to follow in your life that allows you to continue to work on this life theme. All these things are going to trigger you. They're going to trigger past life wounds, but they're also going to trigger your gifts. They are going to shape you into the person you need to be in order to accomplish this mission in this round. It's a shaping experience. So let's look at what's on this menu. So there's your country, there's the time period, there's your body type, there's your family, there's the time period, there's your socioeconomic, there's your religion, there's the religion you were born into. All of these experiences that can shape you and cue you up. So for example, let's say your life theme is power. Maybe in order to work on power, you choose to be incarnated in the United States because power seems to be a real big deal here. Maybe you also choose a family that has a really over-dominant parent or parents. And so you end up feeling really powerless because you're wanting to find your own power. So you're going to incarnate into a situation where you're experiencing the lack of it. Maybe you're incarnating in the modern era, or maybe the 1980s, right? Some time period where being powerful is really a big priority in the culture at large. And so there seems to be a lot of emphasis and priority put on it. It's just a little bit more experiential in your day-to-day life. Maybe you're in a physical body that is weak, so you don't feel very powerful. Maybe you're born as a woman because there's all these power issues around women in the world, etc. All of these things give you ways that kind of clue you up through experiencing power because it's important, because you don't have it, and set the stage for this play. You'll often hear too, when we talk about reincarnation and when you hear from past life regressions and near-death experiences, that they'll talk about it in a play analogy, like these are characters that were cast in. So if we also use that metaphor, then we can think about, like, that is what is at play that sets the stage before the curtain opens. Okay, and diving in a little bit deeper into one area on your life menu is your family. In your menu of options, you have the family. I mean, you'll hear that from children, that before those that remember the time before they were born, they'll talk about, you hear this over and over again, that they pick their mother or they pick their parents. There seems to be something particularly about picking their mother. I've heard sometimes they'll talk about, I picked my mother because it seemed like she needed me. But also sometimes it's about, oh, I really liked her a lot. Now, I know a lot of you out there are like, I didn't pick my mom. She was a horrible person. I get it. But there was something in your menu of that you were like, this is going to be helpful for me in some way. Could also be karmic too. Maybe there was a karmic balancing that you were wanting to go through that caused you to select this on your menu item list. Birth order can also be something that you choose, because we all know being the eldest versus being the baby of the family has different dynamics, has different opportunities and different challenges. And when I say you choose your family, now we often think about our biological family. If you happen to be adopted or you are raised in a family that wasn't your birth family, that also was part of your life selection. There were things that you chose to say, I want to have this biological experience. I want to have the wound or trauma about being given up for adoption, if you have a wound or trauma around that. And then but I want to have this experience in my childhood, teen years. That can all be arranged beforehand. You also pick your body and your identity. I've actually heard that when people are working with their guides, they'll get images of what the person will look like in adulthood. And so they'll be able to say, oh, I'm going to choose this person. Or maybe they get to tweak it. Like I heard about one woman who really wanted to have red hair because it was going to remind her of a particular thing about like love or passion or something. We often also look similar to our previous lives. There's some sort of a template we like to kind of keep on with. So in looking at your potential bodies, you get to see the different challenges. Maybe you're selecting mental health opportunities or challenges on your menu. Maybe you're choosing neurodiversity. Maybe you're choosing particular sensitivities or health conditions or abilities or disabilities. There's a lot you can choose as you sculpt your menu of your physical body. But the idea here is that you had some intentionality in picking your physical form. There was something that you, in the physical shape that you're in, helped you in accomplishing your purpose or learning life lessons, and has a reason behind it. And then beyond the physical body, it's kind of that intangible self, is your personality. Now we have our soul and our soul nature. And I have another video, of course, all about our soul archetype. And that's kind of our soul personality that stays with us over and over. I have a quiz you can take to find out if you're a builder or a performer or a leader or a healer. I'll link to that down below too. I'll put lots of links all over the place. But that is your soul personality. You have a human personality, a human persona. You're an extrovert, you're an introvert, you're very tidy or very messy, your big picture or your details. These are part of your character, not who you are at a soul level. This is something about who you are now. We know this particularly because certain psychological traits are tied to biology and certain personality traits are tied to environment. There's lots of research that's done by psychologists on these various different aspects of our persona or ourself. And there's one little slice that doesn't equate to either one of those, and that I think is the one that does equate to our soul. But a lot of it actually can get traced back to our physical body. And so that is something that we can put into place before we come into form, because it helps us do whatever it is we're going to do. For example, I'm an extrovert, if you didn't figure that one out. And I know I picked being an extrovert because that was going to help me in doing this work and doing a lot of talking to various different people, one-on-one, as well as this wonderful YouTube channel. You also get to pick the talents and gifts you bring with you from previous lifetimes. So going on me, again, talking about me, I have a gift of communication. I know this because it was a bit out of balance when I was younger, and I was a bit of an over communicator, and it took me a while to figure out how to get it back in balance a bit. So that was a talent that I picked to help me accomplish my life purpose, because this is my purpose. So these talents and gifts are things that you'll just have natural access to, that you don't necessarily, where you can develop them and you can hone them. It's not like it's something that you have to create within yourself. It's just there that you get to use to the full potential that you desire. So that gives you a glimpse into what the menu of the life setup that you selected before you were born was. If you go and watch the Reincarnation is a Game one on the quests, I have a tool that you can use in that one that you can work through a worksheet to help you figure out what your life lesson is, your life theme, your life quest, which then helps you have a little bit more understanding of why you may have picked all these other things. So now you've got your starting point. Your character is set up, you've got your origin story. Next menu item is what your life is going to look like, the various different paths. And this is something that is very done co-creating with your guides and with the universe, because there's so many different ways things can go. It's not like you design your life necessarily, but it's like you were like, this is what I want to work on. And your life then gets designed. One of the ways I heard it kind of described when somebody was recalling what it looked like, and I don't remember if this was a near-death experience or a past life regression, but was like it was like a 3D map that they were able to look at that had all these different strings that went in different directions. And so it isn't that you have one life path. It's not that you have one set destiny that you're like stuck on. It's that you have different levels of options. And each of those paths has like a node that is a critical point that will help decide if you go up or down. So let me dig into that a little bit deeper, because that might not be being very clear. There are higher vibration and lower vibration paths, because everything's about vibration, which essentially means lower vibration means it's going to be further away from light and love. What does that translate as? It means it's going to be harder and it's going to be darker. It's going to be more uncomfortable. But as you get more aligned with your personal truth, your higher truth, you can take paths when you make higher path choices that take you on higher life trajectories. So every time you get to one of these nodes, and this might be a life challenge particularly, and how you handle that particular challenge, if you pass it, you might get to go on a higher path. If you don't take the higher option, I don't say fail, because there's not really any failing, it's just different options. But if you don't take the higher vibrational option, then you would take a lower vibrational option, and that maybe then things will continue to get harder and harder until you finally take a higher vibrational option. What might that look like? Let me talk about vibrations. Let's talk about the real world. It means maybe you are in a family dynamic, that this is some sort of dysfunctional family dynamic, and this is played out and over again. And now here comes a particular situation, a particular setup, a particular dynamic between you and this other person in your family, that you've got to deal with this situation because it's hot, it's here now. And if you make the choice to behave in a way that is the most loving to the other person, the most loving to you, the most in alignment with the highest option available to you, and that can look a lot of different ways. It doesn't always necessarily mean subjugating your own wants for another person. Sometimes it's about choosing to respect yourself and your boundaries to take that higher path. It is going to look different based off of your life theme and what it is you're working on. That's going to help tell you what is a higher path. If you're working on power or boundaries, that's going to be different than if you're working on compassion and understanding what that path is going to look like. So before you come into form, part of your menu is those nexus points. That is something that people who have near-death experiences sometimes are shown what those points are, and then it's erased from their memory before they come back into the form, and they don't remember it until they go through it again. So what are these nodes? I think I might do a whole nother video all about this part, the different paths and the nodes, because I think it's really interesting. But these nodes are challenges. They could be relationship challenges. They could be health challenges. They could be career opportunities. They could be moves, they could be conflicts, they could be a variety of different things, but it's something where there's a decision point where you are showing up to this situation and you have a way to choose how you are going to interact with it and how you're going to behave and how you're going to show up. How are you showing up in this situation will help navigate you on your life trajectory. So those nodes are part of your menu options. Also, one of these nodes or some of these nodes are your exit points. Yeah, your death points. That's something that's figured out before you even come into form. I have heard that over and over again in the near-death experiences, past life regression sort of a realm, that there are windows of opportunities, not just one, but there's a primary one that's the most likely, but depending on the different paths you take, might make you more likely to choose different windows of opportunity. And it could also be that, like, you know, maybe you chose a really hard life, and so you wanted to give yourself an exit point at this particular point to see, like, I might not be able to handle this, so I'm going to put an opportunity to exit at this point, and then I'll see when I get there if I want to continue on. You decide at a soul level. You don't decide on a conscious level, usually. And you can die outside of those windows, but when that happens, it's unplanned. So that's going to be like a suicide or a murder or an accident. You'll hear about that in near-death or past life regressions where people will talk about it wasn't his time yet. This wasn't his time. So sometimes that's a near-death that they're able to bring them back. This isn't your time. This isn't your window to exit. You need to go back into form. But sometimes you can't, because, like, you just can't get back into the physical body. In those cases, those folks are brought back into form much more quickly because they didn't finish out the plan. So they go back to the beginning and they have to redo it again. Hopefully, depending on what the situation is, they might not start from zero, but we don't want that. We don't want to have to start up so quickly again. So it's great to wait until your planned exit points before you depart this planet. Other things on your menu, life purpose. You have something that you wanted to get up to in this life. Now, in our world, we often think about this as far as a career. Like, for example, for me, my life purpose is about work that I'm doing. It is about something that I am offering to other people. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what your life purpose is. It can be. It can be, but it might be how you are in a particular relationship. It could be being a father. It could be being a mother. It could be being a friend. It could be just being somebody in your community who volunteers and gives their time. It's always about taking what you have learned in this life, often through what you've painfully gone through, and used it as a way to help other people. It's about giving back to others. It's about taking who you are, your experiences, etc., and helping everybody else on the planet in some way. And that might even be being a monk in a cave, meditating, but you're raising consciousness by adding a higher level of consciousness to the planet. That could be your purpose. Why not? And the big one that we choose before we come into form is our relationships. Our relationships are a huge item on our life menu because it is through relationships that we really fulfill those life themes, those soul lessons the most. It is through relationships that we're able to really understand ourselves more and where we are given opportunities to show up differently. Being in relationships is hard because we are all wackos. We are all wackos. Like, nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes. We all fall short of our capability and our possibilities. And so to be in relationship with other people, it's just challenging. It's challenging. So we like to choose people to challenge us in particular ways. There are a variety of different folks that we work with. So there are folks that we are working on karmic relationships, and I've got a video on karmic relationships. There is our soul family that we're choosing to incarnate with again, these souls that we incarnate with over and over and over again. You're going to know who these people are because they feel familiar. You feel like you've known them forever. You just know them on a deep level. And it doesn't mean that the relationship is easy. Usually it isn't because you've got past life dramas that still need to be worked out in this life. But this is also where you're going to find your soul mate is going to be in your soul family. And then you have soul contracts. So there are things that you're wanting to carry out and that you might need another person to help you work on something. So you'll make a contract before you come into form. I'm going to do a whole video on relationships and how all of this works because there's so much to get into. I can't pack everything into one video. So subscribe. Oh, and by the way, if you subscribe, you might not always get notified about my latest videos. That's something that sometimes people point out, like, Jillian, I don't always know when you've got a new video. YouTube doesn't always give it to me, and I don't want to get the little bell notification because that drives me crazy. I get that. If you go to my website, jillianharrington.com, and you go to my newsletter, or you take my soul ages quiz or my soul types quiz and find out what your soul age is. Are you an old soul? Or you take the archetype quiz. Are you a builder? Are you a performer? Etc. Those are 3 options that get you onto my newsletter. I only send it out like once every week or 2 at the most. I don't like doing a lot of spam. And I put all of my videos in there. So it's a way for you to get notified about my latest videos. I also share things only with that list that I don't even put on my website. Sometimes when I'm testing out new services, I'll offer them to my list at a discount to see, is this something I want to do? I'll put it out there and see what happens and then decide if I put it on my website. But then I do that at a discounted rate since I'm just testing it out. So if you're interested in any of that, go to my website, jillianharrington.com. It's also linked below, like everything else is. And you can get on my newsletter and get notified when the relationships video comes out. But the big takeaway here is that your relationships that are in your life, particularly the hard ones, these are intentional because either you have something that you're trying to karmically balance out with a person, you have some sort of a soul contract where you made an agreement before you came into form to say, I need you to show up this way in my life because I'm working on learning this. Or I agree to show up in this way in your life to help you learn or understand this. And then again, we have our beloved soul family. I'm very fortunate. I have a very wonderful soul family, and we know that we're a little crew together. So I feel very blessed and fortunate to consciously know my soul family in this life. All right, so all of that, like I said, if you know your life lessons, your life themes, it helps you understand why you have the relationships you do. Because I'm talking about it so much, I'm just going to throw it right here. Go ahead and watch it. Check out the free, no sign up required worksheet down below it. And let me know, what do you think your life lesson theme is? And how are you doing on it? All right, well, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.